reefer unit on my trailer never dropped below 38 degrees the whole run. And that's the part nobody at the receiving dock wanted to talk about. I was hauling pharmaceuticals out of a distribution center in Ohio, heading to a hospital supply warehouse outside Louisville. Fully sealed, temperature controlled, the kind of load where you check the reefer readout more than your mirrors. Around 1 in the morning on I-71, I glanced at the display and it read -4 degrees. Not 38, -4. I pulled onto the shoulder, popped the trailer doors, expecting frost, maybe a compressor failure, something I could document and radio in before dispatch started asking questions. The inside of that trailer was warm. Not cool, not cold. Warm, like a room with the heat running. I stood there with my breath fogging outside, looking into a box that felt like a closed-up house in July. I climbed up and put my hand flat against a case near the door. Room temperature. I checked the compressor on the trailer nose. It was running fine. Fan spinning, cycling normally. It just wasn't doing what it said it was doing. I've driven reefer freight for 11 years. I know when a unit's lying versus actually broken. This one was lying. I called dispatch, told them I had a reading discrepancy and needed a decision on the load. The woman on the phone, Denise, pulled my trailer number and told me the reefer had been reporting -4 degrees consistently for 6 hours, according to the remote monitoring system. 6 hours. I'd checked that display at every stop, every weigh station. It had read 38 the entire time, right up until the moment it didn't. Either my eyes were wrong for 6 hours, or the system was wrong, or something between those readings didn't add up. I told her the actual temperature inside the box felt like 70 degrees, easy. She went quiet for a second. And then she said something that I still turn over in my head. She said, "The last driver had the same complaint on that trailer, 2 loads ago." I hadn't asked about the last driver. I hadn't asked about trailer history at all. I requested the maintenance file before moving another mile. Denise pulled it and read it to me. 2 loads back, a driver named Reyes had reported the exact same thing. Warm product, reefer reading sub-zero. A mobile tech inspected the unit at a truck stop in Indiana. The report said the unit was functioning within normal parameters, no fault codes present. Product was accepted at the receiver with no temperature excursion noted. No temperature excursion. Meaning whatever Reyes saw and felt, by the time that trailer reached the dock, the paperwork said everything had been fine the entire trip. I asked her to pull the receiver's log from that delivery. When she came back, she read me the internal temperature log the receiver's own dock software recorded on intake. 38.1 degrees, consistent the entire route. Matching what the reefer readout was supposed to say, not what Reyes felt with his hands. I sat with the engine running and thought about that. 2 separate systems, the reefer's own log and the receiver's intake log, both insisting the temperature had been correct. 2 drivers, 2 different loads, standing in that trailer and feeling warm air on their skin. I drove the rest of the route with the doors sealed, watching that -4 sit on the display like it had nothing left to prove. I told myself my hands were wrong, some kind of adrenaline thing, and that's a reasonable thing to believe at 2 in the morning on a dark shoulder. At the dock in Louisville, I watched them break the seal and unload. The receiver's handheld temperature gun read every case at 71 degrees. Every single one. The supervisor didn't flag it. He initialed the paperwork, logged it accepted with intolerance, and waved the forklift forward. I asked him if 71 degrees was within tolerance for cold-chain pharmaceuticals. He looked at his own gun, looked at me, and said the reading must be a calibration error, and moved to the next pallet. I drove away from that dock, with a signed, accepted delivery receipt in my hand for medication that everyone on paper agreed had stayed properly refrigerated the entire trip, and that I had personally felt with my own hands was warm enough to sweat in. Reyes doesn't drive for that company anymore. I found an old forum post from him weeks later, unrelated context, but I recognized the trailer number. Same one. He'd written that after that delivery, he requested never to be dispatched with that trailer again, and the company obliged without asking why. They just quietly stopped assigning him that number. I made the same request the next morning, and it was granted just as quietly, like it was something they'd done before and would do again. There's a grain facility outside a small town in Nebraska that only exists in the system between the hours of 10 at night and 4 in the morning. I found that out after picking up 3 consecutive loads of soybeans from what dispatch called County Line Ag Processing. Real BOL numbers, real PO numbers, an address that came up fine on GPS. The kind of receiver you don't think twice about because everything on paper checks out before you leave the yard. The first delivery went normal enough. I pulled in around 11 at night. There were 2 other trucks ahead of me in line, floodlights on the scale house, a guy in a reflective vest waving trucks forward. I got weighed, got my BOL signed, got directed to a bin to dump my load. Nothing unusual, except that I never actually spoke to anyone. Every instruction came through hand signals and an intercom speaker mounted near the scale. I figured it was just an efficient operation, understaffed at night, common enough at ag facilities during harvest season. Second load, 2 nights later. Same routine. Same guy in the vest, same silence except for the intercom. This time I tried to make conversation while he was checking my paperwork. Asked him how the harvest was running this year. He didn't answer, just pointed toward the bin. I let it go. Some guys don't talk much at 3 in the morning, and I've met plenty of night crew who communicate in nods and pointed fingers, because talking takes energy they don't have left. The third load is where it stopped making sense. I arrived a little after midnight, and there was nobody in line ahead of me. No floodlights on, no guy in the vest. I sat at the gate for 10 minutes before calling dispatch, figuring the facility had closed early, or there'd been some kind of scheduling mix-up. Denise pulled the load info and told me County Line Ag was expecting me. Confirmed appointment, gate code included in the BOL notes. I read the gate code off my paperwork and typed it in. The gate opened. I drove onto a lot that was completely empty. No scale house lights, no other trucks. The grain bins were there, silhouettes against the sky. But there wasn't a single working light on the property, and no intercom crackled when I pulled up to where I dumped my last 2 loads. I got out with my flashlight and walked the scale house. The door was unlocked. Inside there was a desk, a computer monitor, a log book open to a page with the last 3 months of entries handwritten in it. I found my own name in there, twice, for the 2 deliveries I'd already made. Weights recorded, times recorded, signed off by someone whose signature I couldn't read. I flipped back further in the logbook. Entries going back over a year, regular deliveries, dozens of different driver names, all through that same overnight window. I flipped forward, past my most recent entry, and found nothing. Blank pages. Like the log simply stopped needing to be written the moment I stood there reading it. I called dispatch again from the scale house, told Denise the facility looked abandoned, and I wasn't going to dump product without someone signing off in person. She put me on hold, came back and said County Line Ag Processing had confirmed receipt of my load electronically 40 minutes earlier. 40 minutes earlier, I hadn't arrived yet. I checked my own GPS log later that week, and it backed me up. I hadn't reached the property until 12:04 a.m. Their system logged the delivery as received at 11:20 p.m. I didn't dump the load. I drove back out through that open gate with a full trailer, called it in as a failed delivery, and let the company sort out the paperwork mess on their end. What I couldn't let go of was the logbook. Dozens of names, dozens of drivers, stretching back over a year, all delivering to a facility that, according to county property records I looked up out of simple stubbornness a few days later, had its grain license revoked 18 months before I ever hauled a single load there. The facility had been legally non-operational the entire time every one of those deliveries was logged. Somebody had been signing for grain that a defunct business had no legal right to accept, at an hour when nobody official would ever come looking, using a system that confirmed receipt before trucks had even arrived. I asked around at a truck stop a few weeks later if anyone else had hauled to County Line Ag. 2 other drivers had. Both told me the same thing, almost word for word. They'd never once seen the same face working that scale house twice. My dashcam automatically saves footage whenever the accelerometer detects a hard brake, and over 4 months, it saved 11 clips of me braking hard at the same overpass on I-80, same spot, for no reason I could remember. I only noticed because my safety department flagged my account for excessive hard braking events and asked me to explain the pattern before it affected my score. I pulled the footage myself before responding, expecting maybe a deer, maybe black ice, something explainable that just kept happening to recur at that mile marker out of pure bad luck. What I found was 11 clips, spread across 17 weeks, all within the same quarter-mile stretch near an overpass outside North Platte. In every clip, I brake hard, hold speed low for several seconds, then accelerate back to normal. I don't remember doing any of it. Not one instance. I drive that stretch of I-80 regularly. It's on my normal lane route, and I could not recall braking there even once, let alone 11 times. I watched the clips closely, looking for the deer, the ice, the debris, anything visible in the 10 seconds of footage before and after each brake event. There was nothing on the road. No animal, no obstruction, no other vehicle doing anything unusual. Clear pavement, clear weather in most of them, one clip during light rain. Nothing that should have made me brake at all, let alone hard enough to trigger an automatic safety flag. I checked the timestamps against my ELD logs to see if maybe I'd been drowsy, some kind of micro-sleep response, foot easing off out of fatigue rather than a real hazard. My hours of service logs showed I was well within compliant drive time on every single one of those dates. Not fatigued, not near end of shift. Some were early morning, freshly started, fully rested. I went back to the earliest clip, the first one from 17 weeks prior, and watched it frame by frame instead of at normal speed. In the 2 seconds before I brake, there's a shift in the dashcam audio, barely there, almost buried under road noise. I turned my headphones up and isolated it as best I could. It wasn't the engine. It wasn't wind. It was 2 short tones, close together, similar to a chime but flatter, like something electronic rather than musical. I checked the next clip. Same 2 tones, same spacing, right before the brake event. I checked all 11. Every single one had that same sound, in the same rhythm, in the 2 seconds before I braked. For nothing. That sound doesn't come from my truck. I know every alert my dash produces, every chime my ELD makes, every notification tone my phone uses mounted in the cradle. None of them match what I isolated in that audio. I sent the clips to a buddy of mine who does audio work as a hobby. No context beyond asking if he recognized the tone. He came back a few days later and told me it wasn't a phone alert or a factory chime from any vehicle system he could identify. He said it had a strange property, almost like it was recorded slightly out of sync with itself, as if two nearly identical tones were playing a fraction of a second apart. Like an echo that shouldn't exist in an 11-year-old audio recording. I drove that stretch of I-80 deliberately a week later, wide awake, fully alert, watching the road the entire time, waiting to see whatever it was that had made me brake 11 separate times without memory of doing it. Nothing happened. Clear road, no sound, no brake event. I drove it again the following week at a different time of day. Same result. Whatever had been triggering it, it wasn't tied to the road itself or the hour or the weather. I pulled the maintenance history on that dashcam unit out of pure obsession at that point. It had been installed in my truck 14 months prior, transferred from another vehicle in the fleet during a swap when my old truck went in for major engine work. I looked up which truck it came from. Unit 4471. I asked a mechanic I trust in the shop if he remembered anything about 4471's history. He got quiet, then told me that truck had been pulled from service and eventually scrapped after an accident on I-80 near North Platte. A single vehicle rollover, driver fatality. Almost exactly 2 years before the dashcam was moved into my truck. He didn't know the exact mile marker. I didn't ask him to check. I had the dashcam removed and replaced the same week. The new one has never recorded a single unexplained hard brake event. Not once. Not anywhere near that overpass. I still don't know what those 11 clips actually captured. I know I braked 11 times for nothing I could see. That a sound that shouldn't exist was there every time. And that camera had already watched someone die on that stretch of road, long before it ever rode in my cab.